All right, everyone, the neoliberals just can't stop helping leftists to defend child abuse. In today's latest sham, the Biden White House is now planning to directly coordinate efforts to oppose book bans in the United States. Now, on paper, that sounds great. I don't want to ban any books at all. I fondly remember the W era, and trust me, I ain't relapsing into conservatism because never have been one. Trying to go after people's library records, complaining that certain text shouldn't be available. Online, they were trying to censor things too, like the anarchist cookbook and stuff like that was a real big issue back in the 2000s. And of course, as a rational person, even then being young, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The book doesn't disappear because you've banned it. It's just a book. It's an inanimate object. If it gives people crazy ideas and they do something violent, there's usually a disclaimer in the book for that purpose. Why do you think I have a beefy disclaimer in all of my works? That doesn't encourage people to partake in it's not trying to diagnose or treat any ailment and shit like that. It's because the reader has to take some personal responsibility and not be an asshole their entire life. Anyway, the Biden White House, I'll read this part verbatim. Biden administration to appoint anti-book ban coordinator as part of new LGBTQ protections. Now, that's very interesting. Which part of that acronym pertains to explicit material in taxpayer-funded schools? Because when you look at the so-called book bans, Florida and some states, they are targeting explicit material or material within a classroom context that is directly instructing students on sexual topics related to orientation, including straightness, and therefore is equal opportunity. You can think what you want about that. Personally, I don't care if it's not explicit material. So the gay penguin book, it's like, whatever. But some of these materials are pornography, effectively. They are explicitly encouraging different kinds of sexual activity. If it were just about so let's say it's a Christian handbook. Some loopy Christian congregation is really pro-sex because, hey, you got to go forth, be fruitful and multiply. The Lord blesses it when you fuck. So we're going to have a book that instructs, people under 18 how to have straight sex without a condom, of course. That's a sin. And to have kids. Because we need more kids. We need to be fruitful and multiply. Our God is eventually going to take us up to planet Kolob and we'll spread out through the stars. So we need a lot more kids because we need a bigger starting population to fend off the aliens. We need more manpower and woman power. You could end up with a congregation like some UFO cult, very pro-sex, and they think that Jesus was basically the biggest playa of all time. If they wrote a book about straight sex, so penis goes in vagina, in and out, rubby, cummy, shit like that, it shouldn't be in a public school. Taxpayers don't want to fund it, number one. They do actually have rights. The fact that their kid is in a public school does not mean that parents cede all rights over their kids. There's been case law with regards to this. They cede some of them, unfortunately, which is why you should fucking homeschool at this point if you're remotely capable of doing so. The other part is that it's effectively child abuse. Not only is it tax-funded, which is problem number one, you are explicitly exposing minors to sexual content. This is why Drag Queen Story Hour doesn't need to be a thing. If it's just somebody who's cross-dressing reading to kids, that's not illegal. It's weird, but, and most people find it weird, whether they're willing to admit it or not. It's unnecessary. It's not illegal. When the cross-dresser is spreading open their legs to show off their genitals and shit like that, and this has happened, and snuggling with the kids, it's like if it were a straight person, let's say some 40-year-old very straight Christian dude reads to kids. They're reading from the Song of Solomon, probably. They're reading them Christian porn literature, and then is laying on the floor snuggling with the kids. Don't you think that any reasonable parent would at least find it weird? Don't you think there would be complaints? Well, they're straight. But they're acting in an inappropriate manner, at least potentially, with kids. This is not about LGBTQ plus MAP. Well, it's about the MAP part, unfortunately. It's not about that. The average gay person doesn't want this either. I talk to people all the time as a content creator. I have many contacts that are trans, that are gay, that are bi, that are lesbian, that are asexual, that are pansexual. I've never run across a single person who's arguing in good faith that I can't vouch for not being a troll, encouraging this behavior. Yet the Biden White House is now appointing a coordinator to try and help these groups to peddle this material to kids. It's not about gay penguins. I do not care if kids in school discuss orientation. I don't care. I don't even care if a teacher discusses it. The Florida law, while it's legal and I don't have a huge problem with it, is superfluous. I don't care if the teacher tells the students, yeah, I'm straight. Yeah, I'm gay. I don't care, especially if it's like high schoolers, okay? They get up to weird shit all the time. Maybe leave the elementary school and middle schoolers alone, but once you're in high school, you can have a frank conversation about things that you don't need to be discussing with a 10-year-old, for example. There's a level of maturity progress over time with people. You don't magically become insanely different the second you turn 18, other than you can buy cigarettes. You can join the military and go get shot. You can't have a beer yet, though. You can't buy that. Beer's scary, especially if it's Bud Light. Maybe they're going to start doing this too. I bet this will be funded by Budweiser and Target. They'll be paying the coordinator to go after schools that say, hey, maybe this book that discusses anal masturbation is not age appropriate for people under the age of 18 within a taxpayer-funded context. Now, I'm under look, I was a teenager at one point. I was an edgy kid at the dawn of the public internet, and I was looking up diarrhea jokes and porn and stuff like that. And many other kids do the same. Let's not fool ourselves. But that doesn't need to be tax funded. It doesn't need to be encouraged in a school setting. Outside of the parents' consent, certainly that's unacceptable. Parents at home can monitor the internet usage of their kid. And sort of say, okay, well, this is kind of PG-13. They're old enough to see that. But that website, we're blocking it. Are they effective at doing this? Not always. Are they always inclined to bother spending the time to do this? No, of course not. Many parents are fucking lazy. That's one of the biggest problems in society that we have. Lately, parents have become less lazy, and they've been actually going to school board meetings, and all of a sudden, things that had been slowly creeping into curricula for years anyway, like CRT, have been discovered to exist by the core of parents, and most of them oppose it. This is not, nobody is being taught anything of value by reading the book about how Smith screwed Ron. Nobody's taught anything of value by that. You can say it's about destigmatizing gay sex. Destigmatizing? Do you know what happens when you bring up that sort of material to a middle school class? They find it weird. They find you fucking creepy. The kids are all right, by the way. I'm under no illusion either that the majority reaction of the youth when they're encountering this sort of bullshit is reprehension. Again, I was young once. I know you wouldn't know it to look at me now that I'm starting to get some gray hairs and bags under my eyes from lack of sleep. But yeah, I was a teen. I was an adolescent at one point. If you had brought in a book about anal masturbation, I would have been laughing my ass off. I would have been cracking jokes for 1,000 years. As an ADHD problem child, it would have been a really great time. Do you remember sex ed in school and how awkward that was? I used to find it infinitely hilarious. We're in 6th grade, and we're being taught about the human anatomy. And they had this one picture. It was, a dude getting an erection. Not an actual picture of a dude, but a drawing of an erection. And it shows the penis going boom, 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 boom. And all day long, I would go around doing that to my friends, and they would laugh, and they would do it back, and we were doing erection jokes. It's hilarious. Imagine how much more funny it would have been if we had encountered, butt plug play or anal beads or something like that. Horse fucking. Why don't you teach them about bestiality? It's legal in some states. Oh, would that be a bridge too far? Don't you want to destigmatize people who are into that? Why don't you destigmatize what about pausing? What about felching? Cleveland steamers. I don't see that in this literature. You call your literature edgy? Read Orange Man Big if you want to see something fucking edgy and degenerated. But kids don't need to read that sort of thing. That's why I've got it marked 18 plus on Amazon. Kids don't need to read Orange Man Big and learn about, a degenerate having sex with a fish or something before eating it. They don't need to know anything about that. If they're inclined towards that weird shit anyway, if they're, like me, a problem child, they'll find it on the internet on their own anyway. They don't need it in a school context. Also sort of takes the fun and taboo out of weird shit like that, but stop perving on the kids. Let them be kids. Christ almighty, we're not talking about seniors in high school that are already old enough to drive and grow a beard. We're talking about little kids. We're talking about 1st and 2nd and 3rd graders being exposed to explicit material, and the White House is explicitly defending it. Even minting a coordinator to try to keep that material in schools. That doesn't make any sense at all. Who's being taught anything of value, by the way? It's a waste of school resources even to cover the topic, and it doesn't need to be a debate at all. The population almost completely lock, stock, and barrel is against this. The liberals should probably think about finding a different hill to die on, because this one is an awfully steep hill to roll off of. That's about all. Peace out.